If you're anything like me, you've probably been on your phone or watching TV or listened to the radio for far more than an hour already today. Did you listen to something entertaining? Did you listen to something godly? Well, I want to encourage you right here, right now, to do that. Let's please the Lord by listening to a missionary returning from Japan.
I would lie if I didn't say that my first 2 years in Japan were the hardest years of my life.
He's been there for 8 years. He's given so much, and he wants to come back and give a report.
That's not right.
No.
As I said, every time I tell her story.
Yeah. And share with you and I exactly what his work's been doing there, what life is like.
And that's where you started seeing these crucifixions in Japan.
And a specific plan to help the most invisible, forgotten people there, Japanese orphans.
Because there are thousands of orphanages with hundreds of boys leaving that have no path to adulthood.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just say the business has to win, but that family needs to win.
So let's go. That is super fascinating. This is stuff. This is why I wanted to have you on the program, because we were talking and you were sharing with me that you're a missionary, that you were in Japan for 8 years and you're back for a little while. And you were talking to me about orphans there.
Yeah.
And how some of these orphans are just literally dropped off because of divorce, because of bad grades, because they dishonored the family. And that hit me. I was like, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah. And it stems from two parts of their culture in that. There's one where it's your family's position is more important than you. And so if something is threatening the family position, it can be removed.
Okay.
The problem really started right after World War I.
Okay.
Remember, Japan was invading other countries before our World War II.
Yeah.
And their World War I kind of never ended.
Okay.
They went from fighting the Russians to fighting the Koreans to fighting the Chinese to fighting most of Eastern Asia.
Wow.
And during that time, you just had, I mean, think about it. In the States, we lost some hundreds of thousands of men, and we were only in the war for about 3 years.
Wow.
They were at war for almost 30 years at this point. And so you just had hundreds, if not thousands of people in every village who don't have a dad. And so a lot of the system was, okay, the mothers can bring their kids.
Okay.
We'll make sure they're fed. We'll make sure they get clothes. They will get their school books.
Yep.
And that at the time was, you're in the upper class.
Yeah.
If you have guaranteed food every day. So parents were happy to take their kids there.
Okay.
And then when dad came home, or a new husband was found, or the family could take care of the kid, they were brought back.
Interesting. Okay.
And
so
that
this was kind of the motive. This is how it started.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then over decades now, it's just become a bigger and bigger problem. Why are they sent away?
Yeah.
What challenge is acceptable for them to be sent away? That has become, like every slippery slope, bigger and faster, to the point where they're just dropped off for a bad test score even.
That really hit me when we were talking and you shared that with me, because I think in a lot of ways I take it for granted that I have parents who give me grace and mercy. And I know parents have different tolerances, right? And we have different cultures. But that really struck me. What else have you learned about the Japanese culture that kind of struck you like that, especially concerning orphans?
One thing I think that's just, especially on orphans, that is so I don't want to say counter correct or I don't even want to say counter godly.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that Western individualism compared to that Eastern group mentality. And so when you see an orphan in that system, now in some ways it's their home.
Okay.
But in other ways, they take it much more personally, that it's their thing, that's their burden to carry.
Okay. The orphan?
The orphan itself, not the group, not the family.
Okay.
The orphan's responsibility is to get themselves out of that.
Okay.
And so you'll see them turn 18 and they will work really hard in really horrible situations because that's what they must do because it's their responsibility.
Okay.
Now that causes a lot of problems.
Okay.
And it's one of the leading factors of why their homeless child rate is so high. Now I say child and I shouldn't, but it's because the statistics would say they're young adults.
Okay.
They're 18, 19, 20.
Sure.
But you can find these young adults in almost any major city.
Is it similar to the U.S. where they're sleeping under a bridge or in a car or?
I mean, I've seen stories where they're sleeping in apartment stairwells. Especially a lot of apartments in Japan have external stairwells that go up. And so they'll find a stairwell corner and try to get a few hours there. A lot of them collect bottles like we do here.
Okay.
You'll see homeless people collecting bottles or returning that. But the bigger challenge is if you see a homeless person in the States, you can kind of go, oh, well, I can give them money.
Sure.
You can't do that there.
Really?
Well,
is it illegal or?
It's insulting.
Really?
And so if you even offer them money, they will be offended.
No kidding.
And so there's this kind of, I think Americans say, oh, they just got to put their effort.
Yeah.
They will not accept help. Now, if the government's doing it, it's a little different because that's the government's job to them. I learned physically that Japan's travel, like train stations, airports, they close. So in America, I have an overnight stay.
24/7.
I have to stay in the airport for 4 hours and get my 6 a.m. flight.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the airport tells you we're closed.
Really?
Go outside.
Okay.
And so I found myself with...
You're like, guess I don't have a place to go.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend the $80 for the hotel.
Yeah.
So I'll just wait 5 hours here.
Okay.
So I found myself with the homeless of Tokyo. And it was this weird sensation because I was not homeless. They could tell.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm with them. And so I actually got yelled at, had something thrown at me because I bought everyone breakfast.
And you didn't realize this.
And I didn't realize that would be insulting. I just assumed we would all enjoy food.
Yeah.
And so I bought.
Because here, if you did that here, it'd be like, hey, awesome.
Thanks. And then take it and it wouldn't be a problem.
But there, no.
No. Out of the 6 men I bought breakfast for, 3 of them yelled at me and one of them yelled and threw something at me. And it was just the simple fact of I am insulting their own ability to get their own food.
To provide for themselves or carve a path.
Yeah. Now, I say all that to say, put that on an 18-year-old kid who just got told to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have that mentality ingrained in them at school since they're 6 years old. And so these kids are leaving the orphanages with that mentality. They don't want help. They will do it themselves.
I see.
Even if it is the worst job we could think of.
So does this have to do with their culture and honor, if you would?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's 2 sides to every coin.
Okay.
And the other side of that honor coin is shame.
Okay.
And so a lot of people say, oh, it's an honor-based society.
Yeah.
A lot of it is shame.
Okay.
Because it's not you've done so good. It's not you've done this good. It's you are here, so you obviously have caused that shame. And so I think we in the West often cover up the shame part because we don't deal with it well either.
Okay, yeah.
But they have to.
So is it right to say what you're telling me is that someone might look at a young homeless man, say they just get out of the orphanage, they're 18, they're on their own, they don't want to accept help. Someone would look at them and the natural thought progression is that you must have done something to put yourself where you are. Not mom kicked you out, the parents got divorced and put you there. It's you did something.
Well, even if mom kicked you out, what did you do?
Okay. Their idea is you must have done something to get yourself here. Okay. And
that's not just in family structures, obviously family, but work and then school as well. the hierarchy of authority is very, I don't want to say unquestionable.
Okay.
But it's not the first question.
Yeah.
The first idea is not, oh, someone hurt you or someone did something to you. It's what did you do to deserve that?
It really seems like it's almost the opposite of what it is here in the U.S.
Yeah. Where we have a kind of distrust always of authority.
Yeah.
Even good authority, we go, let's watch and make sure it stays good.
It seems like they're maybe pushing too far to the side of you are solely responsible for where you are, even to a child. And we push too far to we're a victim.
Yeah. And it is that kind of, you often will see it is the longer you study Japanese history and culture, you can easily see where we have this chaos and order side.
Yeah.
Or we have what I would call love and truth side.
Okay.
And truth is great, but without love, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And love is great, and love and acceptance is great, but without truth, it's folly.
Yeah.
And so I think America has gone further left on that.
Sure.
And you know, in some rights, that's good because kids need to be kids.
Yeah.
But at the other time, there's that true side. And I think Japan has often gone a little too far in that.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated, messy issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it here. Don't get me wrong. We have millions of kids going out throughout the system. But the change to me is if your parents are gone,
right,
that's something. And that's something a kid can take and eventually wrestle with and I think conquer in most cases.
Sure.
My mom sent me away is a very different, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because you've met these kids, you know, you're tearing up a little bit, you're getting a little emotional, which is totally understandable, but it's not because you're talking about just this topic.
Yeah.
It's because you've stood with them, you've talked to them, you know them, you've heard their stories, and it's hitting you, isn't it?
I mean, I don't want to cry too much on camera, but I always do. I mean,
Okay.
I've been doing speeches weekly, and certain stories, certain kids always get me.
Yeah.
These are some of these. I apologize.
All good.
I'm going to work with mostly 18 to 21s.
Yeah.
But I meet these kids often when they're 6, 7, 8, volunteering at the system in the orphanages. And you would never think this little boy who's just happy to see someone has any right to be there. And the fact that he was sent away because he cost too much or he's disruptive.
Yeah.
And like,
now I'm going to start.
Sorry. But like, can you imagine telling
this is terrible.
A parent coming in and saying, oh, he's too disruptive.
Yeah.
He needs to eat too much.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's easier to cast something away, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easier to cast something away than it is to to care for them, to overcome, to move through those trials. And sometimes it is better for someone else to take care of a child. I know there's a lot of people here in the U.S. who are looking to adopt, and the parents, let's be honest, they're not the best fit to parent that child. And
there's cases like that, not just in the Japan, and it's not just them,
but we're not really talking about that. We're talking more about, like you said, you eat too much, you cost too much, you didn't get a good enough grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the story that always, and I'm going to cry again, I apologize. Her story always kills me. We went and worked with an orphanage. Yeah. And it was summer, great kids are playing, they're having time of their lives. Yep. The team I was with even brought some other kids to come play with the kids. So it was just a great time for them. Yeah. And this little girl, 6, 7 years old, comes to me and just wants to be held. Yeah. She doesn't know my name. Yep. She doesn't know where I'm from. That's not right. No. As I said, every time I tell her story. Yeah. And so, sorry. But
I'm glad you're here because we need to talk about it. we'll later get into your mission and your creative ideas on how to help these kids and break into that, because the nation we're talking about is Japan.
Yeah.
And we know back in the 1600s, they banned Christianity.
Yes.
They executed different priests and Christians and just went around making sure that there were no more Christians.
Oh yeah. They had a test where they would bring all the villagers of any area, and they had to come renounce any gods of the West.
Yeah.
And they had to stand on Bibles. And when we say the 1600s, they started persecution. That's not a good full grasp of it.
Okay.
I mean, it started then.
Yeah.
And the early practice was easy. Find the Westerners and get rid of them. Some were just
because they saw him as a threat, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we should really go back a few more decades, but they were brought in mostly for arms trade. They brought guns to Japan.
Okay.
And Japan opened the doors, especially during the time of that war.
Okay.
Different warlords were using that technology to further the war.
Okay.
The Jesuit Christians at the same time were using the war trade to spread missionaries.
Okay.
So you had the war profiteering from the West, but they were also using that to bring missionaries to Japan. And then the time of the Sengoku Jidai era ended. That's the warring states. The daimyo, military leader of Japan, said, we don't need them here anymore.
Okay.
Let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
We don't need outside trade influence. We don't need outside religious influence.
Okay.
Because they can't control it.
Yeah.
So when you start studying this, it's called the bamboo curtain. Because much like the Iron Curtain before in Eastern Europe, it was just this sole isolation of Japan.
Okay.
And as that progressed, it became, we'll close our ports. The Westerners who are living here, ship them out.
Okay.
But a lot of the Christian missionaries said, no, we're here.
Yeah.
And we're not leaving. We're going to stay. And that's where you started seeing these crucifixions in Japan. But that was just the start of it. That got rid of the Westerners, but it didn't get rid of the Christians. And so
the Japanese Christians.
They had to start getting rid of them. And even today, you can find villages where the kanji is weird. And you'll go, what does this kanji mean? And they'll tell you. Okay. But when you translate it a different way, it can be read either Mother of Christ or Mother of Salvation, and you can find these nuggets of almost Western names hinted. Okay. But these places were persecuted for 200, 300 years. Wow. And that's, if you research it, you can find fumier or other types of tests that were done to people.
And this is where they would, you're the expert, but this is where they would bring like a picture or a Bible of Jesus or something and force someone to step on it.
Step on it, spit on it. Yeah.
They would kill them. If they did, they would let them live.
But you also had some people, like, let's say there's a village of 50 people. Okay. And let's say they're all Christians. Well, let's say half step on the Bible and renounce Christ. But then once the officials left, they would come back. Okay. Well, some of the people who didn't, who weren't killed, or their families were, maybe the husband was killed, but the wife was left. Well, she would not accept them. And so you started getting these divisions even in the persecuted. And that is actually, that practice of separation and persecution that way actually transfers all the way into World War II. Interesting. When it was being done by the secret police at the time. Wow. And so a lot of people often look at Japanese history in 20 or 30-year gaps, but their practices are usually very long-reaching. And you can find the root causes to something 200 years before. Interesting. You know, we talked about the persecution and how Christianity was moved out. And then it wasn't snuffed out, right? No. Christianity wasn't snuffed out. It's still there, but it's kind of tolerated, right? Like 98, 90%, 99% of Japan is Buddhist or Shinto. Is that correct? So I would say 90 to 95, even 98% would say they're Buddhist or Shinto Buddhist. Okay. Now, of that 98%, maybe 50% are practicing Shinto Buddhists.
Okay.
There's a certain level of Shinto Buddhism. They wouldn't call it a faith.
Okay.
They would just say it is what it is.
Okay.
So it is the spirit of things to practice this way.
Is it kind of like saying, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, but I never go to church, I don't read a Bible? It's just kind of like my cultural views align with that?
When I lived there first, I was an English teacher.
Okay.
And one of my students, and most of my students were older than 25.
Yeah.
Mostly adults.
Okay.
This woman was probably in her mid to early 50s.
Okay.
And I did a exercise to have the students bring in something and share about it in English.
Okay.
And she brought a pair of scissors in, really old pairs of scissors.
Yeah.
And she said, these were my great-great-grandmother's. It was one of the first in the region that were bought. And I'm just interested. I said, why are these important to you? And she said, I've kept it clean and working. And I kept probing her for questions. And the end of the story was it was a piece of honor to her that she kept the spirit of the scissors happy.
Okay.
And not her grandmother.
Yeah.
Not the spirit of her grandmother in the scissors. The scissors spirit.
Okay.
And she couldn't really put an exact idea on it.
Yeah.
But that was important.
Yeah.
And so that is in the culture.
Okay.
And so it's not just, and by the way, she would tell you she's not religious.
Yeah.
She doesn't go to the temple hardly ever. But taking care of scissors or a bike or a tool, a saw from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Anything like that can have very, very heavy spiritual influence.
Interesting.
Because in Shintoism, everything has a spirit.
Oh, okay. Okay, I understand now.
And to grossly oversimplify it, the longer and older something is, the more, I don't want to say holy, because that's not the right term. Sacred is getting close.
Okay.
But English doesn't translate it well.
Yeah.
But that is kind of ingrained.
Okay.
From a very early age.
Interesting.
And it's one of the reasons why you take care of your shoes. It's one of the reasons why you take care of things. It's why you clean things. And it goes down to little details about Japanese life.
Okay.
Every male wallet you'll see in Japan is very long.
Okay.
And they'll always put their money in long ways.
Okay.
They don't fold it.
Okay.
2 reasons. One, the more you fold it, the more it gets bent, the more it gets ripped.
Okay.
And that is not, that causes more money to be printed.
Okay.
So you weren't responsible with the money we gave you. Now the government has to spend more money to make money.
That is interesting because we're like a throwaway culture. We make things to like intentionally break in 5 years.
Oh, this will
get another one.
I mean, even water bottles.
Yeah.
This is to purpose bring me one thing of water and then I'll recycle it.
Interesting.
But even their paper money, they design and keep it for as long as possible.
That's fascinating. There's a lot there to respect, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, it would be wrong to say they are doing this wrong because it's different from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even when I was there, there'd be arguments or disagreements where they'd say, you just want it to be done the American way. And no. The Japanese way is right in a lot of senses.
Sure.
But there's some things we can both learn from each other.
So we're talking about Japan and all the different things that you've learned there. And you brought up these awesome stories about the orphans that you've met and just the tremendous things that they've been through. And we've covered some of the history of Christianity. Where is it at right now? It sounds like 98, 99% are Buddhist and a small percent, maybe 1% or less are Christian. Are you well accepted in Japan being a Christian or can you proselytize? Can you share your faith?
I would say that, especially when you're a Christian in Japan or just a Westerner in Japan, there's a lot of people say they're very nice.
Okay.
They'll always accept you.
Sure.
first off, I love the Japanese. And so any critique I give of it is from a Western perspective, A, but B, it's because I love them and I want the best for them. I would say they're very polite.
Okay.
It's not nice.
Okay.
And there's a huge difference when the rubber hits the road between nice and polite.
Yeah.
And so in that, if you want to go proselytize in Japan, no one's going to arrest you. They're not going to, there's no one going to kick you in the street and throw you out of the city. A missionary friend of mine, he was there for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And he said, Japan is often like punching a pillow. If you go to another country where they're going to persecute you, it's like getting beaten with whips.
Yeah.
Or punching a brick wall.
Yeah.
You might chip that brick.
Yeah.
You're going to be bloody.
Yeah.
Japan has pillows. You'll punch 10, 15, 20 years, see 5 converts.
Wow.
And once you leave, 4 of those converts will quit. And so there's this constant pressure to keep it the same. Don't change anything.
Right.
And that's in the culture.
Sounds like it.
So I was at a retirement party for a missionary. He was there over 45 years. He was in his 80s, retiring, coming back to the States.
Yeah.
And Japanese people often think this American doesn't know Japanese. I can talk around him. So you can often catch things.
Yeah.
And she said he's been here for 40 something years, and that's a long time, but he's leaving. He didn't care.
Oh, wow.
It's like, what do you have to do? 40 plus years. And it was just, he didn't care.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to stay.
Yeah.
And when you see that, you start to understand this isn't 20 years. This isn't a temporary, hey, we came and did this for a summer. This needs to be a consistent work.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the challenges of proselytizing in Japan or being a missionary in Japan.
Yeah.
Any short-term work.
It's like nothing. It's not respected. It's
in some ways it's actually a negative.
Yeah.
Because it gives them the idea that it isn't for them, it's for you.
Interesting. Boy, my eyes are being opened here, man. Like the culture is just so different, and it's not that it's bad. It's not that it's worse. It's really beautiful. And I think there's some things that we should take away and really bring into our culture from their culture, because there's some great, beautiful things there, but it also creates these big mountains to overcome, you know, just the way they think and the way they do things like that. I mean, if anyone here worked for 45 years at Ford or some company or Target or Costco, we go, wow, dude, you gave your life to that place. Yeah. But here it's, no, you have to give it all.
I mean, another example, and just talking about like working at a company for so many years. I went to college for a year there. And one of the things they let us do is our teacher took us to a festival. And no one in the class understood why we were at the festival.
Okay.
And she just kept saying it was a cultural experience for us. And we're talking to the other people at the festival. It's about 10 families.
Yeah.
And I kept asking questions.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a company festival. It's kind of a retirement. Okay, I understand.
Okay.
What company? Oh, okay. Where is that at? Oh, it's this many miles away. Okay. And who works there? Oh, we all did. Did. Yeah, the company closed. Oh, when? Last year? No, 40 years ago.
No kidding.
No one alive was working there ever.
Whoa.
It was all of the grandfathers who worked together.
No kidding.
And you now have their great grandkids playing together because this company, that's what gave them their status. And so they were still honoring and thankful.
Wow.
And so the company's gone, but they're still meeting. And it's just a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine I couldn't even tell you where my grandpa worked.
Tell me what's going on here, because I'm getting a little bit confused.
I apologize.
No, it's not. It's more with the culture, because
Yeah.
I'm having a little difficulty here understanding. It seems to me like what you're saying, because what I'm hearing is if your son dishonors the family, he needs to leave. But to keep the spirit alive of a scissors, we take care of it and we cherish it no matter what.
Yes.
If all of our grandfathers worked at a company, we still continue to meet and, eat together and do things together and cherish that. What is the most important thing, would you say, in these things that they have in common? Because it seems like it almost must be something that I can't quite grasp, because my culture is so different. Is it the group? Is it the history? Is it longevity? What is most important?
The group has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And it starts at 2 times in your life. Your neighborhood is very important.
Okay.
And your school is very important.
Okay.
And I say those 2 separately, even though they're often the exact same.
Yeah.
Because what school you go to, especially in elementary school, is where you live.
Yeah.
And most kids walk to school. Most kids walk together with a group of about 5 or 10.
Okay.
And you'll see them every morning.
Yeah.
But once they're in school, everything is group. Your class 2A.
I see.
Class 2A is always together. And as you go from year 1, 2, and 3, you are together.
Okay.
Always. When you do high school, they do 6-3-3. We do 6-2-4.
Okay.
In high school, you have 3 years. You're always with that class.
Okay.
And so you will have people 20, 30 years later referring to each other as classmates. And so there's a group identity that is impossible to change.
Yep.
But here's another problem with that.
Okay.
I lived in an area in Kagoshima, southern Japan, and I actually got to participate in the neighborhood baseball tournament.
Okay, cool.
And so, you'll have 65-year-old men out there, 35-year-old guys. They all went to the same school. They all know the same classmates. They all know.
Yeah.
But in that unity, they have their competition with this school. They have their competition with that school. But here's the problem. What happens when you lose it?
Yeah.
And this is what happens to almost every orphan. And so they get taken out of that and thrown in a new one.
Yeah.
And this is where, as Westerners, we don't see it. Because to us, the group is movable.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, I am working at, let's just say, GE.
You can compartmentalize it.
Yeah. We're very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I'm here.
Yep.
Once 5:05 hits, I am now a golfer.
Sure.
Or I am now a pickleballer, whatever it might be.
Yep.
That isn't compartmentalized in Japan.
Interesting. Okay.
So you have that societal box.
Interesting.
And so from a Western perspective, we often look at it and go, wait, what happened? How did this happen? Well, when you get pulled out of that box, even if you're put in a new box, new group, that group has been around before you got there.
Right.
And you being a new person, specifically in this instance, an orphan moving to a new orphanage, you can't get in.
Is it for this reason, this invisible structure, this box, that it's so difficult to share the gospel? Because you're an outsider, you're something different, you're trying to change things?
So when I was growing up, even when I had soccer on Sundays, my coach didn't like it, but my parents said, he's staying in service, we'll bring him right after.
Yeah.
I would often show up at halftime, but it didn't matter. That was the rule.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that in Japan because you joined a soccer club.
Yeah.
So now that is a priority.
Okay.
Do you have a personal faith? Doesn't matter. The group is doing this.
Okay. Okay.
School is a priority. Do you have a personal faith? no, you don't, because school has this.
Right.
You have this responsibility to your group.
So the group trumps the individual every time.
Yeah.
And in America, it's like, hey, I got practice, can't make it to that group thing.
Yep.
I've got to do this. I don't feel like it. I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different.
Exactly. And now when you take that into not just work or school,
okay,
but now when you visit a church multiple times or over years, you'll see kids will be there 100%.
Yeah.
Until about not sixth grade, 5th grade.
Okay. This is a Christian church.
This is a Christian
Japan.
This is a Christian church, Japanese pastor, Japanese.
Okay.
Everyone's Japanese.
Yep.
All the kids will stay until about 5th grade.
Okay.
Once they're getting into 6th grade, they have to get ready for junior high entrance exams.
Okay.
You will not see a 6th grader in a
Really?
Japanese church.
Okay.
Because that entrance exam is super important.
It's everything. Yeah.
Because where they go to junior high determines where they go to high school.
Yep.
Where they go to high school determines where they go to college.
Yep.
Where they go to college determines what types of jobs they can even apply for.
Okay.
So even Japanese Christians will go, oh no, he has to study.
Yeah.
That's a priority. Mm-hmm. And so you just won't see them. And so now you're trying to put this Sunday is God's time culture that the West has into a culture that goes, no. He has a responsibility. And this is where it kind of gets impossible.
Okay.
Because if you push them on this, you are pushing against not just school.
Right.
You're pushing against career.
Yep.
Which means you're pushing against family. Which means you're pushing against the government. Because you're now not saying this Sunday morning is more important. You're saying this is more important than the betterment of Japan.
Right.
Because that's the worker's job.
I see. Okay.
And so you can't just go, oh, no, you should not go to school and study. You have to come to church. It doesn't translate because it's speaking upstream. It's just the exact opposite.
That's fascinating.
And that's one of the challenges when you go, oh, we're doing an event on Sunday or we're doing an event. Well, that's my only day off and I have to do X, Y, Z.
And you've been in Japan for 8 years. So obviously you've learned these things over time. I'm sure you didn't have all this knowledge before you went there. No. But you think about sharing Christ and you kind of get these images of people in the Bible. Go to village, share Christ. Go to a village, share Christ. This is not like that. This is, you really need to understand the culture, the customs, the people, the language, in order to even have a chance to break through.
And you can't do it quickly. Nothing in Japan is done fast. When I first got there, I was a firebrand ready to teach English and preach God.
Take over the world,
And it just, I was, eye-opening is not enough. It was world-shattering.
Yeah.
And when I say nothing happens fast, I mean nothing happens. It took me 6 months, I believe, to meet my neighbors outside of the front porch of their house.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm inviting another male, single guy, to go out on Saturday afternoon. Nothing committal, nothing.
Just hang out.
Hey, 8 hours. No. 30 minutes talking. And it just took forever to make these connections.
Yeah.
Now, when you take that to ministry or missionary work, you need to set up meetings months in advance.
Wow. Okay.
The first time I went to the last orphanage I was working with, I showed up. Didn't call ahead. And my pastor was like, you might want to call them. I'm like, it's fine.
Yep.
Sunday afternoon, no one's busy. And I was driving a scooter at the time, pulled up. I was met at the front door by 2 men. And they just said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm just wanting to come tell who I am. I work with this man. I work at this school. I wanted to volunteer. It took me 40 minutes to meet anyone besides those 2 guys.
Wow.
And it was all because I didn't call ahead.
Yeah.
And there's a rhythm to life there. And if you get off of that rhythm, it doesn't work. How does that involve missions? I'm sorry. That was the whole purpose of that question. I was working on this for a long time.
Yeah.
and I was at a school, and I was their English teacher, and I was trying to put together a visit to the States for the students, the English students specifically.
Okay.
And the parents loved the idea.
Sure.
I started talking to the parents in, I think, October.
Okay.
I said, we're probably going to do May, maybe even May or August is what we'll probably do. First meeting with the school principal, he said, no, that's way too soon. I said, it's 6 months.
Yeah.
No. We have to do this at least next summer.
Wow.
And I said, next summer? It's October.
Yeah.
And I think that was 2021. So he didn't want 2022 summer. He wanted 2023 summer.
Wow. Yeah.
But that is the general view of large movements.
Interesting.
And so when you do any type of ministry, when it comes to large issues, and faith is a very big issue.
Yeah.
You can't do anything next week. Hey, we'll do it next Sunday. No.
And that's probably killing you because you love Jesus. You want to share the gospel. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you need to just sit, be still, be patient, learn, and move not, against their cultural norms, but just move with it.
And it is definitely a change of pace from the Western perspective.
Yeah.
But one of the things it does is it lets you sit and meet your neighbor just as a person, not as I'm going to minister to you. You must get to know them first.
Yeah.
Because they won't let you have a real conversation if you don't.
So I have to wonder, you're learning all these new things and you're forced to be still and be patient. Were there times where you're sitting alone in your room and just like, God, what are you trying to teach me? What's going on here?
I would lie if I didn't say that my first 2 years in Japan were the hardest years of my life. I had to completely reevaluate how I was going to live life. And it wasn't just, I had my first real job. No, I was working 60 hours before that in the States.
Yeah.
The work wasn't the hard part. It was, there are going to be times of total abandonment feeling.
Yeah.
Because, as I said before, their culture is very group oriented.
Okay.
You can't just jump into a group.
Yeah.
Because even if this is a tennis group, it might have been formed when they were in middle school.
Okay.
And so you can't just join them on a weekend. And so, hey, I want to go out with you guys. Oh, well, we have plans maybe next forever.
You're just not part of the group.
And, I'm not Japanese. I'm not this. I'm not that. I haven't been here for 30 years. There's all these things.
Yeah.
And so a lot of foreigners will go there and love it. But I think most of the people who do that are connected to other expats.
Okay.
Or Japanese who are focused on foreigners.
Yeah.
But if you go out in the country or outside of the city, it's a totally different game because they aren't looking for a foreigner to join them.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to a lifestyle there or a ministry focus there, totally different game.
Wow.
Eye-opening isn't enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was just such a world shift to see everything is true.
Yeah.
Is only a perception.
So you've done a lot of work over there.
Well,
just learning, studying, learning the language, the customs, the people, how they do things, how they view things, what's important to them. And one of the reasons we're talking is because we want to share what you're going to be doing next. And so you've learned all these different things and you're looking to have like a breakthrough moment where you can help the Japanese people, specifically orphans who are moving out of the orphanages. And you've come up with an idea to not only help them, which works well with the orphanages and the Japanese culture, but also a way for you to minister to them as well.
Yes. And just like we were saying, the challenge that the Japanese orphanage system has, they have it because it was originally a good idea.
Yeah.
And it has gotten to the point now where that is a government responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a cutoff age at 18.
Okay.
And so these kids will graduate high school and they're done.
Okay.
They have to leave. So now an 18-year-old kid is pushed out.
Mm-hmm.
And just like we were saying with the group identity or the group understanding, your group is usually then your family and your work.
Yeah.
So you need, it's called a honko. It's a family stamp.
Okay.
We often just sign for things. You know, oh, I bought a car. I have to sign these papers.
Okay.
They use a stamp.
Okay.
Now you can buy very detailed. The importance is that's how they do it.
So what you're saying is in their culture, like just like we might go out and you're 18, you're going to rent an apartment, you're going to rent a car or get a vehicle, get a loan. You need someone to co-sign, right?
Yes.
So here we would be maybe mom, dad, someone, a relative, a
anyone who
sister.
trusts you.
Yeah.
Even a pastor, even a cousin, even a friend who's doing better than you.
And what you're saying is here in Japan, it's more of the family is a co-signer? Okay.
Or technically you can also have your work do it in many cases.
Okay.
But the challenge is it has to be the stamp.
Okay.
And I don't want to say 100% of the time, but it's close. It's the family is going to stamp for your education or your place of life. Where's your address?
Yeah.
All of that needs to be stamped.
Okay.
Their parents have that. Or if their parents did pass, their grandparents have it.
Okay.
But that kid has been in the orphanage for 5, 10, 12 years. Many cases, they don't know where that person is. Many times that person has moved. Okay, now that 18-year-old who has no job, no house, has to go get that stamp.
So you're telling me an 18-year-old gets moved out of an orphanage in Japan. They cannot just go get a regular job?
Well, sure. Where's your stamp?
Wow.
We need this signed.
So it's almost like here we need your driver's license. Yeah. We need your birth certificate.
Yeah.
We need your social security number. There they need the stamp.
They need a stamp. They need the proper paperwork.
And if they're an orphan and you don't have a stamp, literally what do they do?
Well, they have a stamp.
Okay.
They don't have it though.
Okay.
Their family does. And because we have a social security number at birth.
Okay.
They have family registries.
Okay.
And this is where the challenge gets iffy.
Okay.
So let's say a normal case, mom and dad are still together. They just put the kid in the system.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are on that dad's paperwork.
Okay.
You are now that family's next child.
Okay.
So your name is there. Usually your father would have a stamp. Now it gets more difficult when there's a divorce, but
sure.
So you need to go get that stamp. And you can't just copy it.
Really?
It's on register.
Okay.
And it needs to be stamped on that paperwork.
No kidding.
And so this starts causing problems, not just governmentally, but getting a part-time job.
Wow.
They can't just go get one.
So you can't get a job. You can't rent a place. You really can almost do nothing without this stamp.
You can't even get a phone.
Really?
Or a bank account.
No kidding. So in other words, what we're really talking about here is providing a way. You've come up with a way to provide a stamp for these young men, these young women that move out of the system who really, they can't do anything. Get a phone, get a car, get a job.
Yeah. Well, much like I was saying, a lot of Japan is their historic cultural perspective.
Okay.
Which is what it is. It's not a legal matter.
Okay.
It's a cultural matter.
I see.
So we need this stamped.
Yeah.
Well, technically you can just sign.
Yeah.
But culturally we've always stamped.
I see.
So it's not a legal issue.
Okay.
Because a foreigner can come in and just sign.
Okay.
So technically they can sign.
Okay.
But it's not done because that's countercultural.
I see. Right.
So as a foreigner, I can go in and say, do you agree? Yes. Okay, sign.
Yep.
But the responsibility now falls on me.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of companies, banks won't accept culturally. And so this is where I can step in this loophole.
Okay.
So instead of saying, hey, you need to go find your parents, get this paperwork.
Yeah.
By the way, don't even address the emotional problems between
an
abandoned child from 10 years ago.
Like you left me because I got a bad grade or I dishonored the family. Can I get the family stamp?
Yeah. And so that whole issue between child and parent, that's a whole fight. Now we can just skip that.
Yeah.
And part of this goes with, well, why am I there?
Sure.
And this actually goes back to, as I was saying, when I tried to work and volunteer at the orphanage.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here. Let me volunteer.
Yeah.
No. Why are you here? Let's schedule that.
Yep.
If I'm going in as a company,
sure,
not as a missionary, not as a church, I'm a company here to hire people who want to work.
Yep.
Okay. What age can you hire? Legally, I can only hire this young for this many hours. Anyone in that age group, I will hire for this many hours, this pay. Oh, we don't have this and that's fine. I'm a company. Here's my company registry. Yep. It's stamped. And now I can say, you're 16. Great. Come on in for 4 hours this Saturday. And I can go around all the cultural challenge.
Right.
And all the baggage that they carry to meet the need they actually have.
You're able to offer opportunities for them to work, also kind of move into adulthood away from the orphanage without the barrier of needing this stamp.
Yeah. And not just the stamp, but also just the social, as a foreigner, I get to just bypass a lot of the pressures that they have to have. As I said, I worked at a school. One of the cultural requirements is your first year as a new teacher for any school.
Okay.
You have to bike there.
Bike there?
You must, your first year working there, you should always bike there.
Okay.
Why? Because you just came out of college. And traditionally, college kids will bike where they're going.
Okay.
And if you show up with a car, it's kind of like showing off. I have a car and I'm better than the other people. You have to look like everyone else. Wow. And so one of our schools was quite far from where the employee was. And her second week, she came and asked the principal if she could drive. And he said, what do you mean? She said, well, I really shouldn't be biking because it's so long, but I also should be biking because I'm a new teacher. No, get your car, please drive. And that's mainly because the principal is a Westerner.
I see. Okay.
And
this is what you mean by getting around some of the cultural things. Yeah.
As a Westerner, I can just, that doesn't matter.
Hey, hop in the car.
Yeah.
We'll see you at 8.
we're 5 miles out from where you live. Yeah. Please take your car. It's raining or it's the middle of winter. Yeah. Yeah. And there's dozens of little things like that.
Interesting.
That put issues between a young kid leaving the orphanage, trying to find their first job. This whole business plan came from the orphanage I was working with last. And she said, if you hire them, give them work and money, I can write off on you coming and working with the kids 6 days a week. Yeah. And so I started thinking, what can I do that's scalable? And so I started looking at what type of business I could run, what hobbies I have. And I came to bees and honey. Sure. One reason is it's very scalable. Okay. 2, it's very repeatable. And so I started looking at what were the legal requirements to start an apiary. Okay. Now, the reason I chose that is also because land need. Bees travel a good distance. And so you don't need 10 kilometers of space. I see. Okay. Where if I was going to run any other farm, I need acreage to get a crop. Okay. And I could go into mechanical business or machining, but all of those things now have a high input cost. Yep. I need to buy the metal. I need to buy the wood. I need to buy the tools. But apiaries, you just need to have a box. Yep. Now, technically it's a special box, and once you have a few hives, you can just split those hives every few months. Okay. And you can double your numbers basically twice a year. Interesting. So if I buy if I buy 10 hives, by the end of that year, I could have 40.
Yeah.
And so I can scale my business to the amount of workers and kids I can work with.
Yeah.
That's why I eventually chose an apiary.
Okay.
The other reason is it's kind of a precious good. You know, there's a million farmers.
Yeah.
You don't have a million beekeepers. And so it's not a totally new idea to them.
Okay.
But it's also not a main path.
Yeah.
So it's niche enough that I can grow it and not competitive enough that way.
So what's the plan then with starting the apiary? You would invest into some beehives and go from there, hire some of the kids?
Yeah. So there's a legal pathway that I have to go through.
Okay.
To make sure I'm a legal company and approved by the government. So for the first year, probably it will just be me.
Okay.
But the idea is that I will get a house and then preferably 2 houses. And then any kids about to leave the orphanage would be welcome to a position.
Okay.
So the idea is I will let them work.
Yeah.
Basically as long as they want to stay with me. But 18 to 20 is my real gap.
Okay.
You're not technically an adult in Japan until you're 20.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why. So I want to just make that gap.
Okay.
I just want to bridge that. And then, so in house number 1, it will be big enough to house about 4 to 8 people.
Okay.
And so those 4 to 8 guys, 18, 19, 20, will come work. I'll give them 20 hives to start with.
Okay.
Roughly about 20 hours a week.
Okay.
And then every season we'll up that.
Okay.
And then their pay will not be based on what they produce. Their pay will be static.
Okay.
But that way, they're paid for. Their work produces a good. And they can start learning not just work ethic, but business, marketing, sales, all of that realm. They can learn from not just beekeeping, but also processing and selling.
Once they have jobs there at this apiary that you're looking to start, will they then still have to go get that stamp in order to get like a phone or a vehicle or something? Or how would that work?
Culturally, working for a company is kind of seen as a good measure.
Yeah.
So we might look at a company car kind of as it's not your car.
Yeah.
But at least the company gave you something.
Okay.
In Japan, it's kind of the opposite. Having a company car says you're trusted.
Okay.
Oh, you have a cell phone. Yeah, it's the company phone. Oh. So now when it goes, oh, you're 18 and you can't get a cell phone. I can just give them one as the company phone.
I see.
And now
that would give them some credit.
As a business, I can just sign that off. Oh, good. You're going to take the company car. You're going to take this. Now they have more prestige.
I see.
It doesn't matter so much now that they had a bad background.
Yeah.
And this is the other social upstep I can give them.
Okay.
They are an orphan trying to find a job at 18, 19. They don't have the problem is, where did you previously live?
I see.
Once that address is put down, every company finds out really quick. This is an orphan.
Yeah.
You're not in the normal box.
I gotcha.
So you're now abnormal.
It's really a beautiful story of what you're working towards, you know, just being a young person, having this interest in Japan, being willing to go there for 8 years and learn so much about their culture and their customs, their language. And then over time, just continuing to devote yourself to this, to discovering ways to kind of unlock or to free so many of these young people who are moving out of an orphanage that don't have these stamps, that don't have the bridge, if you will, to get them to where they need to go, to get a phone, to get a car, to get a job, and to basically give them a new beginning.
Yeah. And as an American, I can look at it and just go, oh, this isn't important.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that, and I don't want to say that's what I'm doing, but as an American, I do kind of see these things as frivolous. I also understand why they're there.
Sure.
And so I can never just teach the kids, your culture is wrong.
Sure.
But I can show them there is another way.
Yeah.
And this is what I tried to say all the time in my business meetings in Japan. I'm not trying to do things the American way.
Yeah.
The American way just has just as many challenges, just as many faults.
Sure.
And if not worse, we have more kids in the orphanage system.
Yeah.
We have way more people in jail per population.
Sure.
So I'm not saying you have to do it our way.
Yeah.
But there are things you guys are not seeing because you're in your culture.
Yeah.
You are in it just like I'm in it when I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see this problem.
Absolutely.
And so coming here taught me this. And I can open that third perspective.
Yep.
As what I said, I'm trying to do an American way.
Yeah.
There's a Christian way. There's Jesus's way here.
Love it.
And that's the other half of the business idea. So 18, 19, 20 is 3 years. So yes, I have them for 3 years to work with me, but I also have 3 years of discipleship.
Absolutely.
So this is going to be every meal.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, we're going to McDonald's, but
Sure.
and this is a minor win for me. Not every meal is going to be rice. I hate it. Sorry. We're going to have mashed potatoes.
There you go.
But there's also just why does Hamilton, why does he pray every meal?
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be eye-opening to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's also a chance to truly disciple them.
Yeah.
Not just, and I don't want to say this negatively, not just in Jesus's teachings, even though that's my main goal. The other thing is, how do I do this for my family in the future?
Yeah.
Because these men haven't sat with their families.
So being that example to them.
They've always had a canteen type of meal where there's 30 people at benches, 40 people at a bench, and the staff is over there and we're here. And so there's a type of family structure that is outside of the school that they haven't had. And so it's not, and this is where I'm constantly praying for grace, because I'm just a kid who grew up with my parents, but I get to bridge that for them. So work is there, family is there, and then there's also ministry. And that's the 3 legs of the apiary.
So the dream was to kind of immerse yourself in the Japanese culture and to share Christ, and it morphed into realizing there's this huge need here to help orphans transition into adulthood who have been forgotten or given up. And not just that, but also to provide this family structure so that they can carry that on and be a disciple of Christ to them, so that they can see Christ in you each and every day as you guys work together with these beehives.
And the part of my work that I'm really excited about isn't my work, because I'm just going to be there for, I turned 39 recently. If I'm lucky, I get another 39.
Yeah.
You know, if I make it to 78, praise God. I don't, maybe new medicine, I'll make it to 90 or something, but let's say that's 3 years each. That's 13 times I get to do this.
Yeah.
What I'm excited about is after 3 years, I'm going to have these 20, 21-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And by the way, ladies, there's going to be a women's house. I'm just not running the women's house. These 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, when they turn 21, 20, they've been with me for 3 years.
Yeah.
Let's say 80% don't care about me at all. I'm just a job.
Sure.
Great. How can I help you? Where am I going to put you? Where am I going to lead you to the next job, your next apartment? Great. Glad to help you. Come back anytime. I'll co-sign you for any time. No problem. Let's say there's 20% that say he's not a bad guy. And this Christian who came here actually cares about us.
Yeah.
We'll keep him as an advisor. Great. Fine. There's going to be about 5%, I'd say, who are going to say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I've accepted Christ, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go next.
Yeah.
Let's say I have one man who stays with me. And I say, okay, great. You've seen this run for 3 years. This is now your house. I'm going to go to another orphanage and do it again.
Yeah.
You're going to stay and do what I did. And, well, this isn't my house. No. You are now the manager of this house.
Yeah.
You're now the head of this house. There's going to be 5, 8 more boys coming from the same orphanage you came from.
Yeah.
Coming here. Well, I can't teach them. Yes, you can. I don't know what to say. It's the same thing I did. And what's even better than that is you are coming from them.
Yeah.
You are their older brother. They knew you 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've been working with them this whole time.
That's beautiful.
And so when he's 21, 20, he'll be leading 3 more boys, 4 more boys, the same path.
Yeah.
And now I can constantly keep replicating.
Yeah.
Let's say I get 2 boys. Great. You're going to stay here. You're going to come to this new one.
Yeah.
And I can continue to replicate.
Yeah.
Not because Sweet Beginnings needs to take over the honey industry.
Sure.
Because there are thousands of orphanages with hundreds of boys leaving that have no path to adulthood.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just say the business has to win, but that family needs to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my real end goal is when every orphanage has at least 2 connecting houses.
Wow.
So it's not just, hey, because my original goal when I moved there was to adopt. My original goal was I was going to adopt a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to get married. Hasn't happened. And I was going to adopt a kid.
Yeah.
And I was just going to teach him. But once you visit and you see, oh, there's 20 kids here, you can't just help one.
Yeah.
You can't just visit once. That's not enough.
Yeah.
So that's
well, God's put that in your heart, hasn't he? And not just that, but this great vision to provide for kids, not just once, not just to one child, but to have this overarching plan, this overarching organization that ultimately wants to provide transition care and the love of Christ to all these different kids that are moving out of orphanages.
In my personal opinion, it's a bad substitute of a real family.
Yeah.
But one of the things American culture has learned is when you leave young boys alone, it doesn't go well.
I have 6 sons.
When you have, there's...
and I've been a son.
And, it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Not just for the child or their friends, because they're going to hurt each other.
Sure.
But for society.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say Japan is too far this or no.
Yeah.
But it's been a trend in the orphanages system that these kids are, I don't want to say kicked out, but once they graduate, in many ways they are just kind of thrown to the wind. Now, this isn't just Japan. This is America as well.
Sure.
But these kids don't have that teaching that men need.
Yeah.
And I mean need.
Absolutely.
And I say 18, 19, 20, but I'm 39 and I still need it.
Absolutely.
So it's a pale substitute for a real mom and dad.
Yeah. It's not the way you wish it would be.
And it's not the way God wants it. But even a pale substitute is better than good luck.
Absolutely.
And Godspeed.
Absolutely.
And what does the child have to fall back on? No other company, no other family is going to do it.
Yeah.
In Japan, if you're a man's man, Robert Downey Jr., not Robert Downey Jr., some American actor always does the commercials for Boss Coffee.
In Japan?
In Japan.
Okay.
He's done it for like 20 years, maybe 30. But he's always extremely stoic. And you won't see them cry a lot, almost ever.
Yeah.
And one of the things they believe that from is sugar. And so women will get coffee and it's sweet. And men will, and Boss Coffee is the main one, but there's all these others.
Yeah.
And they're always just black straight.
Okay.
And they're always bitter. They even will advertise double bitter. And this is like,
delicious.
what are you doing? Anyway.
Well, this sounds, Hamilton, like the beginning of a beautiful story that we might hear about down the road sometime, where this gentleman came from the U.S. and God moved his heart for orphans in Japan. And he gave him this idea to start these apiaries for men and women who are coming out of the orphanages. And someday we'll hear about all the great work where these apiaries are helping people move into adulthood.
I mean, that the end goal is that these apiaries can be set up and individually built by each house.
Yeah.
Because I know it's an apiary is the business, but to me, it's the house.
Yeah.
And I even had a business coach of mine, a Japanese man. He was very upset with me. He's no, the house isn't important. The house is just the family. The business is important. I said, no, the business is really the kids.
Yeah.
He says, you're not looking at it from a business perspective. I said, I know. That's why it's important.
Yeah. You're looking at it from what they really need. We do need jobs.
Yep.
We do need to provide, but you're looking at the deeper things, aren't you?
Without a house, the job doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Without
Absolutely.
a family.
Why work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
That's beautiful, Hamilton.
Yeah, I apologize.
You're all good, man. Well, Hamilton, I just want to thank you so much for coming to the Narrow Road Home today. Just sharing so much of your wisdom with us about the culture of Japan, the customs. I learned so much. Wow. I really appreciate it. And not only that, but what orphans are going through there as well. And your specific mission to help move them into adulthood when they may not have these stamps that we learned about in the job or the phone or the car. I love your mission. I love your heart. And I'm so interested to see how this all moves forward. And not only that, but I just want to thank you for your 8 years of living in Japan and really giving up so many different things that you could have done here in the U.S. because God has called you there and you've been faithful.
Well, thank you. The only thing I would say is my wisdom is, and this is the truth for all of us, He has a plan for us. And recently I saw an internet meme that said, the good news is He knows how stupid you are. And He's already made plans to cover that.
Love it.
Because the 8 years in Japan were not smart. It was a million mistakes, one after another.
Sure.
But that's how I learned. How do I get through that?
Yeah.
And if I knew what I was doing, I would have never found that challenge.
Yeah, true.
And that's what most people just miss. And not just in Japan, but here. So that's the other thing I would say to all the viewers is there's a calling on your heart. Work towards it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you're made for. So
Beautiful.
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, tell us, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, my personal email, which is open to everybody, is danieldavis0086 at Hotmail, just to show you how old I am.
So Daniel Davis 0086 at hotmail.com. And then you've got some social media coming as well. We're going to put that in the description. So anyone who wants to connect with you, follow what you're doing, maybe give, they can go to the description right now and see all that information as well.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks so much, Hamilton.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah.